welcome to Night Drives. Tonight it's raining, and I am going to share a voice recording of something I wrote sometime last year. I found the recording a couple of months ago, and I didn't really remember making it. I think I recorded it last October, and I found it, I don't know, maybe in January. And yeah, I didn't remember making it. But clearly I had written something down kind of to almost to explain to myself what happened in regards to a significant relationship in my life. A relationship with somebody I met when I was very young. And when I say relationship in this context, there is... I have historically, and I guess I still a little bit feel self-conscious, but when I say relationship, I just mean relationship in the way that one person and another person relate to each other. It's not specifically romantic, although that is an aspect of the relationship that that I'm talking about in this piece. I've had a lot of frustration about making the relationship, almost taking the relationship out of the 12th house and into the real world, right? Because there are some aspects with, in regards to dream space and kind of feeling secret and hidden and feeling separate from their quote unquote real life. But yeah, there has been so much frustration with that relationship and wanting it to become real and wanting it to become a tangible thing, wanting people to know that we were connected, and feeling like people didn't know that we were connected. Yeah, and so I've had this urge over the last few years to try to create something out of it. Art, even if it's bad art, right? Make something of this connection in my life that has been so deeply influential to me and informative of my days and my moods and my life as an adult. And I've wanted to make something tangible, something of this, because the relationship itself resists realness. It feels like something that only exists inside of me sometimes. And so I wanted to put this out, even if it can't help anybody else. I hope it can somehow. I hope someone else can feel understood or seen in their own experience. But even if that's not the case, I have wanted to make something real of this connection because the romance refused to become real. And and so all the romanticism I try to put into something else, into poetry, into art, into a little bit of writing and a little bit of reading and a little bit of audio recording. But yeah, so it starts out with, I suppose, a poem. It sounds like a poem that I wrote. I could probably find it if I looked a little harder. But yeah, it starts out with a poem and then it goes into the story. Thank you. I hope somebody can take something from this. Hey, are you ready? You don't have to be ready if you aren't yet. It's okay. It'll wait for you. Time can move as slow as you do when it needs to. But someday, you'll be ready, and it'll creep into your life and fill your rooms up slowly. People like to say you won't even notice it happening, but you probably will. You've been here so long, but you've also felt so many little shifts in your heart over time and hoped that those were signs that you were coming out of your dark. Hoped that each shift was the first step on your way out. But then you were still in the dark for weeks and months and even years. Those shifts weren't false. They were not tricks. You have moved so much, even little by little over the years. But this time, are you ready to be ready? A life you could barely imagine. You can have that. You will have that. It will come closer to you when you're ready to become ready. Many years ago, I met someone who made me feel and think things like, oh, magic is real. We were friends. And eventually, when we were both briefly single, we danced around dating. Never really got together in that way, never even kissed, but it changed the course of my life, and it changed my heart. I had realized about a year before we tried dating that I had a crush on this friend, but they were in a relationship that I thought was just like the relationship for them, like for life. These are the things I could think when I was 21. So I had quickly and privately decided within myself that, like, yeah, I like this person, but I don't think I want to date them. There. Neatly sorted. Didn't have to worry about it. They were not available to me, so let's not even think about it, right?
Of course, right.
But then, a year later, when I first met the suggestion, the possibility that I could just simply go on a date with this person, like they were a human. I could just go on a date with them. That was the first time I felt this glimmer of hope about my own life that said, what if you could actually have precisely what you want? What if you could be exactly where you wanted to be? We spent time together for about 2 months, and now from this vantage point deeper into my adulthood, I wish I had had the ability to just open my mouth back then and bring the situation to a head, to ask, hey, do you actually like me? Are you interested in kissing me? Because every time we get to our cars and we hug goodbye, I wait a bit and watch your face, like maybe you'll do something or say something that would indicate clearly that you're actually romantically interested. But then nothing happens, and we just vanish into the night in our separate vehicles. Now, in my 30s, I wish I could have made things crystal clear back then. But I was 22, and the people I had dated before typically made their interest in me very plain and straightforward in both word and deed. I didn't know why this person couldn't touch me. I didn't know why this connection wasn't becoming real. And then they started to disappear. And then I had to move back home. Years passed. I moved to other states. I had relationships. I came back. I came back to not exactly where they lived, but the area. Throughout my 20s, we were somewhat in touch on and off. At some point, I had decided that my friend had never actually been interested in me, and that I had simply led and they had followed up until the point where I didn't want to lead. And then there must have been nothing to do but stand still and pointedly not kiss. I tried to talk to my friend the way they talked to me, which was sparsely and vaguely, with my direct questions answered with a single word and a consistent vibe of gentle doom and weariness about life in general. I thought that is how they wanted to talk. I thought that was what communication was to them. Almost nothing. No solid information, just vibes. I tried to follow. It made me sad. It made me sad that I always wanted more from them. I wanted more words. I wanted them to answer my questions with details about their life and, more importantly, in my opinion, their feelings, their inner landscape. I wanted to sit with them in their space and witness the mechanics of them. I wanted myself to feel free, to speak more openly, more at length about my own experiences and how I was really doing. But I thought, they answer with one word and don't elaborate, so that must be what they prefer. And so I didn't. I did not speak more openly, more freely, more at length. I felt sick with how much I cared about them, about their opinion, about their presence, about how I wanted them to be part of my life in a very real way, and about how I wished they would invite me into theirs. I would test myself. I would count days since I'd talked to them, trying to see how long I could make it before I reached out again. I felt sick and wrong, wanting to be in the life of someone who consistently wasn't inviting me in. But sometimes I would dream of them, and it would soothe me. It was like that was the space where I could actually have nourishing conversation with them, where I didn't feel like I was starving for them. Every time they showed up in a dream, my friend would pop up in my message box within about 48 hours. Clockwork. And one day, I think in our late 20s, we became what I would call real friends. Our relationship became something I could recognize as friendship. There was comfort, and there was ease, and there were words, and even when there were fewer words, there was no sting. It was finally just sweet. I don't remember how it happened. That is what happened so gradually that I didn't even notice it. It must have been after I decided that I would finally let myself talk to them how I wanted to talk. Openly, frequently, with lots of words. In small part to model the behavior I wanted to see in the world, and in large part to stop driving myself bonkers. And so for a while, we were friends. Real friends. For years. And it made sense for me to care so much, so deeply. And caring finally stopped hurting. What if that had been the end? What if we had stayed real friends, and that was all of it? What if we had not talked about the past, our little glint in a snow globe of a past? What if nobody had said, "I love you"? What if I had never gone on long, purposeful walks across town, trying to feel through what I actually wanted? What if it had just stayed good? Instead, we tried again. Or we tried to try. Or I thought we were trying to try. 2 months before they started to disappear again. The words, "I can't." The most reliable words they ever gave me were "I can't." I took myself to the lake between Vermont and New York, and I stared into the water for 3 days from half a dozen beaches. I talked to the ripples and asked them to take away any of the pain that I didn't need to keep. I made myself clear. I am willing to keep what pain is mine, what pain is useful to me, what pain will teach me. But if I carry any extra burden, please take it. I will leave it here. Please take it. Take any pain that I can spare. I didn't want to go back to the feelings that I had when I was in my 20s. I didn't want to have to create stories to grasp for quote unquote common sense and write my own explanation for why this connection didn't make any fucking sense. I didn't want to yell at myself. Not again. I didn't want to call myself delusional. But they were gone. Even when they wrote back to me, it felt like they were gone. So no, they didn't just vanish on me completely. I wasn't utterly, completely ghosted by my friend of many years. You can scroll my phone and see that they did send me a few words in May, in February, in December. But my body, even when they did talk to me briefly, my body felt convinced that they were gone. It was like a death. I'm sorry for the dramatics, but it just felt like they'd been swept away. I was still, now in my mid-30s, hoping for explanation for a story that made sense to me. I was looking for reasons that being together would have been terrible, or reasons I could be grateful or feel lucky that no romance had become real. Would they have one day talked about me the way I heard them talk about the other people they loved? Broken, boring, not really understanding them. Together, but not really together, and like anticipating separation even though you'd already parted. But we were already together without being together. Maybe I didn't have to worry about them saying those things about me or our relationship one day in the future. Maybe they'd already said them. Maybe somebody else had heard their worst feelings about me. Maybe somebody else knew more about this than I did and would quietly nod their head and think, yes, good, that's for the best, finally, when my friend told them that they'd ended it with me. Maybe to somebody, I am the curse that doesn't let go. Maybe I am the unwise path. Maybe my love to them is poison. Maybe they are rescuing themselves. But after about 14 months, the strange thing about going through this tunnel, this dark, is that I get to have a life that I don't know anything about yet. And it's not out of my control. It's a life I have a hand in, that I have power to create, but it's a life without them in it. And I have no idea what that is, what that can be. They already have been gone for a year to me. Even when they've given me words, it just felt like they weren't here. And so I've already had practice. I've had practice already living a life without them. And I'm going to live a life where they aren't part of it, it seems like. Or even if they are, it can't be ever what the fuck it was before. It would have to be like meeting a new person. But yeah, I have felt it happening. I have felt myself moving from this like trapped state where sometimes they would come into my brain and just like squat on everything for a few days or even like a week or two and just take over my mind, and I couldn't sleep. And there were so many nights in the past year where I just was up in the middle of the night, which isn't that unusual for me, but I was up in the middle of the night and I would just cry, like dry my body out, cry, and try to write in my journals or write poetry, and just most of all cry, scream, daydream about them showing up at my door. Sometimes I would let myself have the little daydream, but yeah, this has to be done though. I did this for so long. Like, I did some version of wishing that they would, like, really bring me into their heart, that I would be part of their daily life, that, I would have that, the intimacy of mundanity. Like, the way, if you live in a house with a bunch of people, that, like, you can tell who's walking down the hallway just because of the rhythm of their footsteps. I think this is done. And there is a real possibility we are going to live our whole lives apart. We might live our whole lives apart. So, and now you're back with present day me. Hi. So the night that I edited the piece I just played, it was another late night where I ended up scrolling on my phone, and especially through Instagram Reels. And I came across a reel of this man talking about having a closing ceremony with his partner as they were ending their relationship. And he described it a little bit, and he noted a few like sentence stems that they kind of like prompts that they responded to as part of their little closing ceremony. And the questions asked, or the prompts were, what did we appreciate most about the other person? Like, what are you most grateful for about this relationship? What is your favorite memory? And what do we hope for the other person? And because I ran into this right after spontaneously spending about 3 hours editing the roughly 18-minute piece you just heard, I was like, oh, like, for some reason, like, something just felt in me. It was like, oh, I think I could answer these questions. One thing in the reel that I really liked at the very end was that the man said something like, yeah, you can do this on your own. Like, you can just like switch chairs, and just like do this practice on your own without the other person, which was funny. I haven't done that, but I did just answer the questions, from my perspective for this other person. And I thought I might as well share these little thoughts now. What did I appreciate most about the other person? What am I most grateful for about this relationship? So, this relationship illustrated to me just how much relationships can transform between two people over time. I am deeply grateful for the years of real friendship that we had, the love and the many little joys and delights we had together on like day trips, little adventures and meetups in malls and and museums, just weird things that we saw. I am grateful for the time when this relationship was a place of comfort. I appreciate that when my heart was hurting about something I couldn't bring myself to say to the people who were kind of supposed to be closest to me at the time, like a former partner or another friend. You were the person I could express myself to. You were a safe place for my heart to land for a long time. I loved that you didn't chase away my pain. You didn't try to rush me into feeling better. I felt like you could hear my pain and you could sit with me while I was in the pain, and I felt like I didn't have to be like captain of the good ship Silver Linings with you. I could just be a person in pain, and you could let me be a person. I felt like I felt like you saw and acknowledged my personhood whenever I was not doing well. As for my favorite memory, I kind of feel like I should have something like more significant or major or something. I guess it is significant and kind of major, but the memory that keeps coming to mind with this prompt is just that one morning when we woke up next to each other. You know, classic platonic sleepover. Like, actually, though. And it was the first time I saw all of your hair down instead of like pulled back in a bun or a ponytail. And I remember you were smiling, and the light coming in from the window made the whole room feel just sacred. Your hair was everywhere, and I just remember you were so beautiful. And what do we hope for the other person? I've hoped a lot of things for you, and I told you what they are. I wrote it all down last July. But today, in answering this question, what I keep feeling now is that, and this might just sound silly, but like or presumptive, right? Like, what I keep feeling is that I hope you let yourself be loved by someone who both loves you as much as I do and who wants to love you as much as I have wanted to give that love and bring it into the real world. Like, I hope you get to experience that. I hope you already are. I hope that's just the situation that you're in already. But yeah, in case you haven't, that's what I hope for you. I hope that what I was trying to give is something that you do receive. There were really a lot of good times, especially in the years where I felt like we were real friends. There was a lot of joy and comfort and ease. There was actually a lot of satisfaction to have them in my life at that time. The way that I have loved them has informed every other love in my life. It's part of me learning, like, the depth of my capacity for loving another person. And I got a lot of poetry out of it. It's real good for inspiration, unfortunately. It's still raining. Thank you for joining me for Night Drives.